about that. Hey, we're going to come back with Mike RIchman, Football Life, Nebraska Press, George Allen of Football Life, and then come back with more right now on Sports Overnight America. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Overnight America, along with Art Sorce. I am Fred. You can email us at sportsfred@aol.com, sportsfred@aol.com. Brand new book out, George Allen, A Football Life, written by Mike RIchman. And Mike, welcome to the show.
Great to be on with you, Fred.
Now, I grew up in Southern California, so I thought a lot about George Allen. One thing I didn't know, Mike RIchman, book, by the way, published by Nebraska Press, is that he was a great checkers player. In fact, he almost plays checkers against Albert Einstein. Tell me that story, please.
Sure. Well, Allen was in the Navy B-12 program when he was in college. He actually was part of that program in several different colleges as he worked his way through school. And the Navy B-12 program was to train for future officers who would eventually go into some type of combat situation in World War II. So that's why he was in the Navy B-12 program. So he ended up at Princeton University as part of that program. And Albert Einstein was an adjunct professor at Princeton, and Allen knew that. So one Sunday morning after church, he and a friend got on the bus, and they went to Einstein's house and knocks on the door, and this woman comes down. It was Einstein's assistant, and she says in a deep German accent, Professor Einstein will be down shortly to see you. So he comes down, and as Allen explained it, this was actually from an interview he did in the 1980s with a guy named Steve Guback, who was his press officer at the time for the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. He explained it. Einstein comes rumbling down the stairs, hair flying, could have been wearing all these baggy clothes, and could have been pajamas or whatever, probably sweats. But so Allen says to him, Professor, thank you for meeting me here. I hear that you're a good checkers player. And so Einstein says, well, people say a lot of things about me, but that's not true. So anyway, Einstein says to him, we can still play checkers. We can still play a game of checkers. Did you bring a board? Allen forgot to bring a board, of all things. It was so antithetical to the way he carried himself throughout life. He was so preparation oriented, and that showed in his days as a football coach. It was details, details, details. He knew everything about the opposing team. But in this case, he forgot to bring a board to play Einstein. So there's one little more tidbit about that story. So as Allen and his friend were leaving Einstein's house, Einstein made this sound, boom, and he spread his arms. And Allen didn't know at the time exactly what that meant. But Einstein was signaling that the atomic bomb was coming. That's what that whole thing was about. And because Einstein was consulted on I don't think he was directly a part of the Manhattan Project, but Oppenheimer, I think, somehow spoke to him at some point, and is also his theory of relativity was key to the creation of the atomic bomb. But he knew that the bomb was in the making and this was going to be built. So he went boom. So
Mike, I have to tell you something. My cousin's a genealogist, and I'm actually a first cousin 10 times removed from Albert Einstein. That's no joke.
Oh, really?
She's a genealogist. So I wasn't a bad checkers player either. I don't know. Art Sorce, you're on with Mike RIchman, who's put together a great book, George Allen, A Football Life, written by Mike RIchman and published by Nebraska Press. Take it away, Art Sorce.
Hey, one of my heroes of all time, George Allen. The future is now. That's what I remember about him. I also remember that he cut his teeth with a great coach by the name of George Halas as the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. Now, we all know that George Allen didn't like rookies, right? Which is where the over-the-hill gang came in Washington in that great rivalry with Dallas in the 70s. Never missed one of those games. But, Mike, in putting this book together, I look at George Allen as one of the most underrated head football coaches in NFL history, okay? I got to be around him with a friend of mine, Cedric Hardman, an old defensive end with the 49ers and the Raiders, who was his coach at Long Beach State at the end of his career. And so I spent a lot of time with George. Talk a little bit about George's impact on the NFL defensive football, the 4-3 defense, and what he meant to the game.
Yeah, sure. George Allen, a major part of his legacy is what he introduced to the game. I mean, he was a pioneer on defense and special teams. He introduced schemes on defense that are still part of the fabric of today's game. The 5 and 6 man defensive backs, the nickel and dime defenses, respectively. On special teams, he hired one of the first special teams coaches in the NFL, in Dick Vermeil, in 1969. The same year, the Eagles hired Marv Levy as their special teams coach. And Allen put so much more emphasis on special teams than his coaching peers did at the time. The other coaches, for the most part, thought it was like a facet of the game. Hey, let's just, run out there and kick the ball and then just get off the field. Let's get it over with. Allen looked at it. He took it really seriously. So he was a pioneer in those two aspects of the game. But that's a major, major part of his legacy. Also, the fact that he's number 3 all time in winning percentage, a 7-12 winning percentage for coaches with at least 100 regular season victories. Madden is number 1 and Lombardi is number 2. And in all 12 of his NFL coaching seasons, this is a phenomenal mark. Allen never had a losing season. And when you add in his 2 USFL seasons, he didn't have losing records in those years either. So in 14 years of pro coaching, never had a losing season. This guy was addicted to winning. So you mentioned the Chicago Bears and what he brought to them. He was first hired as the head talent scout with the Bears in 1959. And he was in charge of drafting players, and he had his eye on guys like Mike Ditka, who the Bears drafted in 1961, Ronnie Bull, who was the Rookie of the Year in 1962, great running back. 65 is arguably one of the greatest drafts in NFL history. Back-to-back, he had Butkus and Sayers, and there were 2 other players in that draft who were really good. Steve DeLong, offensive tackle, who opted to play in the AFL, was a one-time Pro Bowler, and also Jim Nance, running back, opted to play in the AFL for the Boston Patriots. He was a 4th-round pick. So Allen had a really keen eye for young talent. It's very interesting when he got to the NFL, his focus was entirely on veterans, like you said, veterans, the over-the-hill gang. And I asked Bruce Allen, his son, who was very close to him throughout his coaching days and also was a ball boy for the Rams and later for several years with the Redskins, I asked him why, such a sharp eye for young talent as the head talent scout for the Bears. And then when he got to the NFL, it was a total focus on veterans. And the way Bruce explained it is his father thought that was the fastest way to win in the NFL. At the time when Allen became a head coach for the first time, 1966, the pressure was starting to build on head coaches it wasn't what it is today, one season and you're out. But the pressure was starting to build there, that more of an immediacy to win. And Allen felt it, and he thought getting those veteran players in on the roster would be the fastest way for him to win. And in fact, with the Rams, he made like 50 trades for veterans, among them Roger Brown, the great defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, who later became a part of the Fearsome Foursome. And with the Redskins, though, he took that to another level. I mean, he was just it traded rookies like a deck of cards. He acquired so many veterans through draft picks and other players, but he got so many veteran players in with the Redskins.
Mike, have you ever heard the great quote that Edward Bennett Williams, the owner of the Redskins, said, "I gave George an unlimited budget, and he exceeded it"?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That was the famous quote by Williams at the Redskins Welcome Home Luncheon in 1971. The Welcome Home Luncheon was a time to welcome the team back from training camp. So Williams made this remark after Allen had led the construction of Redskin Park, which was a $500,000 project, and it was state of the art for its time. And Allen wanted the best facilities for his players, the best fields, best workout facilities. He had all kinds of rooms in Redskin Park. We'd play racquetball or basketball, whatever. He wanted everything that his players would want to become eventually better football players. He wanted that for them. So yeah, Williams didn't really appreciate the big spending, and Allen actually didn't like that remark. He took it the wrong way. It was like, listen, if you want a winner, you got to pay for it. And Williams had a tough time realizing that through the course of Allen's tenure as a head coach with the Redskins, because those two really clashed in terms of spending. Allen was a big spender. I mean, he paid a lot of money for those veteran players to come in, and that led to a lot of the antagonism between the two.
Folks, that's Mike RIchman, the author of George Allen, A Football Life. Here it is. University of Nebraska Press, Amazon.com, major bookstores everywhere. Tell me what happened. And again, I was in Southern California. I think Art was. He got fired by great swimmer Kara Rosenblum 2 games into the exhibition season. The second time he was there, I still don't know exactly what happened. What happened?
Ice Cream Chronicles.
He was fired two games into the preseason in 1978. See, when Rosenblum first hired Allen in January of 1978, he had Allen on a very short leash at that time. Rosenblum was so desperate to win a Super Bowl. The previous Rams teams under Chuck Knox, I mean, they were very good. They were making the playoffs every year. They made several NFC championship games, but they just couldn't jump over that hurdle of the NFC championship game and get to the Super Bowl. They were being knocked out in the playoffs by the Vikings, Dallas Cowboys. So he brought Allen in large part because Allen had this formula for beating the Cowboys. In his career, Allen went 10-10 against Tom Landry, one of his top coaching rivals. Nobody had that good a record, that 500 record against Landry, but Allen did. He had this formula for beating Landry, so Rosenblum wanted that from him, but he had him on a short leash at the same time. I mean, Rosenblum made several comments in the opening press conference when Allen was hired. I mean, you could kind of tell that he was very impatient, and he made kind of jokes like, well, if Allen doesn't win his first few games, we're going to have to reevaluate things or something like that. So he had him on a short leash at that time. At the same time, several of the Rams players didn't want Allen to be the coach in the first place. Isaiah Robertson, Rams linebacker, didn't like him. Pat Hayden, Rams quarterback, he didn't think too highly of Allen. Fred Dreyer, later the actor and really great Rams defensive end, he didn't want Allen. He wanted Don Coryell, because he felt that the Rams needed a great offense, and he thought that's what Coryell could really deliver. They had the defense. They had really good defensive players. They had like a 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense under Chuck Knox. Dreyer wanted that offense. He told Rosenblum, listen, if you bring Coryell in, we're going to score 50 points a game. Well, Rosenblum didn't want to do that. He didn't want to relinquish a first-round draft pick to the St. Louis Cardinals, who still had Coryell's rights at the time, although 77 was Coryell's last season there. But so anyway, they lost their first 2 exhibition games. At the same time, Allen, this no water policy, which the players hated. And at the time, the players were becoming a little more powerful in their say. And even the team doctor told Allen, listen, you can't be doing that. It's really dangerous in the Southern California summer temperatures. And Allen also had this policy, didn't like any trash on the field. Everything was orderly with him. He was a disciplinarian in that sense. He didn't want any trash on the field. He didn't want the players sitting on their helmets on the sidelines. He wanted them up and alert and watching practice and paying attention, whatever. So the players resented that. A lot of them did. And they went to Rosenblum behind Allen's back. And sure enough, after 2 exhibition games, he was fired. And it was just a ridiculous situation. They didn't want to accept Allen's ways, and he would have gotten them on the straight and narrow in terms of, I think, getting over that hump in the playoffs. He would have disciplined them enough to where they had enough focus and were able to really push those playoffs with all the talent that they had. But Rosenblum didn't give him a chance. And the irony, obviously, is that the swimming joke that you made earlier, that the year that they went to the Super Bowl, Rosenblum never saw it. He drowned in, I believe it was April of 79. In that 79 season, the Rams went to the Super Bowl with a 9-17, by the way.
Mike RIchman, I think it's a great book, George Allen, A Football Life, published by University of Nebraska Press, Amazon.com. Thank you so much for appearing this night on Sports Overnight America.
Thank you very much, Fred. Appreciate you having me on. And anybody who would like a copy of the book, it's available through all the traditional means, including Amazon. But if you want an author autographed copy, go to my website, MikeRichmanJournalist.com, MikeRichmanJournalist.com. And Richman is RIchman. And that's my John Hancock signed copy that will be for you, my personalized copies for you.
Folks, it's worth it. Go for it. Michael, again, thank you very much for appearing on Sports
Overnight America. And I love that hat. I love that hat, Mike.
It's a great throwback.
All right, more on Sports Overnight America right after this.